Hey guys, it's Marianna, and it's time for another Game of Thrones episode recap. So today we're talking about Season 5, Episode 4, Sons of the Harpy. I would say just like last week's episode, this one was pretty transitional. There are a couple of things that happened that were pretty major, and one of them I actually did not expect at all. It just came out of nowhere, but for the most part it was more or less people's politics and people making their next move. But that was still interesting, and I would say we are heading to some pretty crazy stuff towards the end of the season, so I'm definitely excited. The very first thing in the episode that we see is Jorah Mormont stealing a boat and putting Tyrion on that boat because they are going to see the Queen. And Tyrion naively assumes that he means Queen Cersei, but in fact they're going to see Queen Daenerys Targaryen, as we have all suspected. And Tyrion has a good laugh of that because he says, you know, what a waste of a kidnapping because we are going to the same place anyways, so good job, Jorah. And I just want to say it is good to see Tyrion back because he is sober now, or as sober as it gets for Tyrion, and he has his wits back pretty much because he quickly figures out who Jorah is, what his deal is, what his plan is. This conversation does end for him in being knocked out for being a smartass, but you know, what are you gonna do? It's Tyrion, and Jorah doesn't want to take any of that. The other people traveling this episode are Jaime Lannister and Bronn, and they are of course going to Dorne to get Myrcella. And in the beginning of the episode, Bronn is just kind of questioning Jaime of why they're going where they're going, why are they undercover, why doesn't Jaime just take Lannister ships and do it the official way. He warns them how the Dornishmen are dangerous and they're not the best guys to mess with, and we're kidnapping a princess, so Bronn has legitimate concerns, and Jaime says to him, we're not kidnapping a princess, we're rescuing my niece. And Bronn knows what's up because he's like, your niece? Yeah, we all know that's not your niece. Later on, we do catch up with them when they are already off the ship, and they pretty quickly get into trouble because they have to fight off some Dornishmen. And that scene was really cool because Bronn kicks some serious ass, and the fight is just shot in a really awesome way. But at the same time, it is pretty hilarious because the things that Bronn says, just wow. And at the same time, it is interesting to see Jaime not be the arrogant, confident guy that he was in the beginning of the show. I mean, he has come a long way, but when Bronn asks him how many men can he take, and Jaime says one if he's slow, you know it's not the same Jaime Lannister. We have known it's not the same Jaime Lannister for a while, but this is just a reminder of what kind of guy he is now. And when he does take down that one man, it is also quite interesting because the guy tries to swing his sword at him, and Jaime sticks out his fake hand and catches the sword, and it is just a happy coincidence, but at the same time it's kind of an awesome move. I have to say these two are quickly becoming my favorite traveling couple because they are just as funny, if not funnier, than Brienne and Pod, because they're not sad, they're just doing their thing, and at the same time they're also kicking butt, so it's exciting. I'm excited to see what kind of trouble they're gonna get into next episode or whenever we catch up with them again. Also at Dorne, we see Ellaria with the Sand Snakes, and I wish that scene was a little longer and we got to know who the Sand Snakes are a little better, because every time we have seen Ellaria and people at Dorne, it has been really, really short glimpses at what her plan is and what is going on, and I just want more of that from the show, and I hope that I'm going to get that because I just want to see that culture. But Ellaria and the Sand Snakes are preparing for their own fight with the Lannisters. They're starting their own little war because they want justice and they do not want peace, and they want Oberyn avenged. Now at King's Landing, we have Cersei working on her power moves, and first she gets rid of Mace Tyrell because she sends him away to the Iron Bank because she doesn't need him at King's Landing right now. She's trying to get rid of Marjorie eventually, but she's starting with the other people. Then she's also scheming with the High Sparrow because she appoints him the Faith Militant. She pretty much gives him an army and gives him a green light to go crazy on the sinners of the city, which is what happens next. And there's this crazy montage of these religious fanatics just purging the sins from everybody, and it ends with them arresting Loras. And of course, Marjorie is just livid about that. She doesn't want her brother locked up, and she tries to address these things to Tommen, because who else is she going to go to? So Tommen is like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to my mom, because Tommen doesn't know how to deal with this stuff. He is so oblivious to all of the political stuff that is going on, because he even asks her, aren't you and my mom getting along? And Marjorie is just like, I wish you understood. So she goes to her sweet Marjorie role, and she says things like, oh, don't you have any affection for me? How can you let them imprison my brother? Blah, blah, blah. So Tommen goes to Cersei, and he's like, you must release him. And Cersei's like, well, I didn't imprison him, so go talk to the High Sparrow yourself. I'm sure he'll release him. And of course, when Tommen goes to the High Sparrow, they're just sending him all over the place this episode. He doesn't get let in to see him because the High Sparrow's praying. And for a moment, it gets a little tense there, because he has the Kingsguard who are like, hey, we can cut through these fanatics and get you where you need to be. And at the same time, there are people on the street who are starting to scream, bastard, abomination, because they have heard the rumors that he's the son of incest. So Tommen kind of decides to get out of there and not start any violence. And of course, Marjorie is not happy about this, because she sees that he is weak and he does not know how to deal with this stuff, and that is not the result that she was going for. So she decides she's going to write to Lady Olenna, who is a crazy old lady, and she's gonna fix this situation, because she has proven herself to be dangerous before, and I wonder what she's going to do. The interesting thing about King's Landing right now is that Cersei either doesn't realize that her actions are going to bite her in the ass later, or she doesn't really care if Tommen stays in power and she just wants power all to herself, which is entirely possible. But I don't know if she realizes that what she is doing right now is also going to hurt Tommen as a king. I am curious how that's going to work out for her, especially with the sparrows on her side, if she's just planning to rule with fear, but she's not including Tommen on these plans, so I wonder what her endgame here is. But for now, she's definitely trying to get rid of the Tyrells, and so far, she's been successful. At the Wall, Jon is continuing with his duties as a Lord Commander, and this episode, he has to sign some letters to lords all around, because he needs men and he needs supplies for the Night's Watch. And Sam gives him a letter to sign to Roose Bolton, and of course Jon is not happy about this, because Roose Bolton killed his brother. But Sam is like, you cannot do this without the support of the Warden of the North, so you're gonna have to go ahead and sign that. And Jon does. He's not happy, and then Melisandre comes in to try to convince him to join Stannis on his quest to Winterfell. There's only one war, according to her, between life and death, and Jon needs to help out. And then there's this weird thing that happens, which I did not expect. She tells him she's going to show him what he's fighting for, and Jon, along with everybody else who's watching the show, thinks that she's going to show him some vision, and he's like, get out of here with your visions and your magic. I do not believe in that. Please leave me alone. And instead, she decides to show him some boobs. Alright. I do keep hoping that Jon will come with Stannis to Winterfell and participate in the crazy mess that's going to happen there, but I don't know if that move is going to convince him. I'm not sure that was the right move, Melisandre, but who knows? He kind of looked shocked at the end of that exchange, so maybe he's going to take it as a sign and tell somebody to watch over the wall while he helps out with Stannis. I have no idea, but it was strange. We also get this really moving scene between Stannis and Shireen, where we find out how Shireen got grayscale and also how Stannis feels about his daughter. And I really enjoyed watching that scene, because Stannis is somebody who is not the most developed character on this show, and I have never particularly had much interest in his character, but they are starting to humanize him more and show him in different ways, and particularly this scene did a lot for his character, because not only did it show him as a caring father and as a human being, but it also showed that he is not a quitter. He does not give up, because everybody told him to give up on his girl and that she was going to die, and he did not give up until he found a cure and until she survived, and he stands by his family. So that makes me respect Stannis a lot more, and I'm kind of rooting for him now. We also have a quick scene at Winterfell where Sansa is paying respects to the dead, and Peter Baelish creeps on her, as he usually does, and they have this really interesting conversation where we find out what Peter's deal is right now, because he is leaving to go to King's Landing, and Sansa, of course, is upset because he's leaving her to the Boltons, and she already is not amused by this situation. But Baelish reveals that his plan is that Stannis is going to come in and destroy the Boltons, and then he's going to save Sansa as the last remaining Stark and name her Wardeness of the North. And if for some reason Stannis does not succeed, then Sansa is to play the Boltons the best way that she can, and basically, according to Peter, the North is hers regardless. She just has to stay strong and play the game well. I'm definitely a fan of this plan either way, and I thought it was really funny how at the end of that scene she said, well, when you're gonna get back, I'm going to be a married woman probably, and Baelish just laughs because he clearly doesn't think that this wedding is going to go through. He just doesn't. And he also kisses her, which is a little odd. It's a lot odd because it's kind of like he couldn't have Catelyn and now he's planning to be with Sansa. It's a little creepy, but at the same time, still a better deal than Joffrey, Tyrion, or Ramsay. And last but not least, we see what's going on at Meereen, and the main thing that happens there is the standoff between the Unsullied and Sons of the Harpy. And that was a pretty intense scene. At first we see Sons of the Harpy just kind of going through the streets of Meereen, killing some people here and there, but then we see the Unsullied kind of trapped between these two big groups of Sons of the Harpy. And this is where I was a little bit confused, because I thought the Unsullied are supposed to be these awesome, badass fighters, and Sons of the Harpy kind of made them look like children, except for Grey Worm. I get that they were outnumbered, but they kind of went down so quickly and so easily, and these guys had shields and spears, and the other guys didn't have anything to protect themselves with. I mean, they had some knives and stuff. Anyway, Ser Barristan shows up, and we know he's a really good fighter, so I did not expect him to die. When he showed up, I thought, man, I hope they don't kill him off right now, because that'd be terrible. I really wanted to see how he's going to react to Tyrion coming to Meereen and all of that, but apparently I'm not going to see any of that, because Ser Barristan and Grey Worm finished off the remaining Sons of the Harpy, but Ser Barristan looks dead, and Grey Worm looks really wounded, so that's a great way to end the episode. That was pretty depressing. Something interesting that happened this episode, which seemed that it was there for a reason, and I'm talking about all of the references to Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen. The very first scene that we see with the previously on Game of Thrones thing is the flashback to season 1, where Ned Stark is talking to Robert Baratheon and they're talking about Lyanna Stark. Later we see Lady Selyse and Stannis talking about Jon, and Lady Selyse is being a jerk and saying how Jon is a bastard by some tavern slut, and Stannis says maybe he is, but that wasn't Ned Stark's way. Then after that, when Sansa is at Winterfell, her and Baelish quickly talk about Lyanna and Rhaegar, and she says how Rhaegar kidnapped and raped Lyanna. And then finally we see Ser Barristan and Daenerys talking about Rhaegar Targaryen, and Ser Barristan tells her how he didn't like killing and he really loved singing, and kind of presents him in a way that makes you think that Rhaegar was a different person from what people thought he was. And this whole situation makes me think back to the theory that Jon Snow isn't actually Ned Stark's son, and he may be Lyanna Stark's and Rhaegar Targaryen's son. And maybe he didn't actually kidnap her and do all the terrible things to her. Because that is the story that Robert Baratheon tells, who has been engaged to Lyanna Stark and who started his rebellion because she was kidnapped and all of that. But it is also possible that she could have escaped with Rhaegar, and it looked like a kidnapping from the outside, but in reality, things could have been different. So something to think about this episode, and I do wonder why they suddenly brought all of these references to Lyanna and Rhaegar in one episode. Definitely interesting. That's it for my recap and review. As I said, this was a pretty transitional episode, but it was still an enjoyable one because I don't think there's ever been a Game of Thrones episode that was not interesting. This one felt short just like the others, and it was one of those episodes where nothing happens, but also everything happens. So we'll see where all of this is going. Cannot wait to see everybody clash at Winterfell. I keep saying that in every one of my recaps, but I feel like every episode they're building and building towards this crazy standoff, and I'm rooting for Stannis right now, I'm not gonna lie, which is something I didn't think I would ever say because I normally don't root for Stannis, but this season I'm definitely rooting for Stannis. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like it if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed already. I hope you guys are having an amazing day, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!